Hello, everybody out there. Welcome to Through a Therapist's Eyes. I am Chris Gazdick, and I have the distinct pleasure of speaking this week again for a follow up in the part two with Daniel Gasser. If you didn't hear him last week, you really got to check it out. We started an amazingly cool conversation. Disagreeing, Daniel, as much as we're disagreeing, or are we agreeing more than we're disagreeing? What do you think so far?
I think we did quite well on
Yeah.
agreeing and a little bit of disagreeing, but I thought that would be more of disagreeing actually than it was.
I suggested we might agree more than you might think that we do, but in any case, this is through a therapist eyes, like I said, where you get personal insights directly from a therapist, and in this episode, a coach in your own home and personal time in your car. Thank you for listening to our show. We're worldwide. We are an international podcast, and we need those 5-star reviews, man. They make a big deal in the algorithms and the Apple iTunes stuff, writing awesome words, and that all is very, very helpful. Contact at throughatherapisteyes.com is the way you interact with us. Daniel, I really appreciate you working with something that is as dramatic and difficult as the issue of addictions can be, drug and alcohol addictions. And by the way, we might throw into this conversation what we call the process addictions, eating addictions, gambling addictions, sex addictions, and online video gaming addictions. I like to say when I'm trying to educate people about what we know about addictions and what we don't know, but what we do know is you don't get addicted to picking your nails, you don't get addicted to haircuts. Yeah, I love the Pittsburgh Steelers football, baby, but you don't get addicted to football or dance. There's that's a different reality. You get addicted to drugs, alcohol, weed, pot, pills, all of that, substances, and then eating, gambling, sex addictions, and online video gaming addictions. So we'll talk about that. But before we get to that, Daniel, these guys need to know where to find you because you do coaching with people all around the world. Is that right?
Yeah, it's online, so it's all around the world,
Yeah, the
basically. Yeah,
amazing world we live in, the internet age, isn't it?
it is. It is fantastic. I love
It-
it.
It's awesome to be able to talk to this man, guys. He's from Switzerland, all the way across the world in Europe. So I love we yesterday or last week we talked a little bit about some cultural things with the police shooting. That was fascinating, kind of as well. But how do they find you? What do you do? I mean, you got phone numbers. You had a internet address. Like, what's the best way to get up with you?
So the best way to get out with me is to visit quitthebottle.com. Don't get afraid if you see some package prices there. Just write an email. You can read there what I have to say, but write an email first to Daniel at quitthebottle.com, and we have a conversation. Because I'm not making really a living out of this coaching thing. It's really to help. I'm a businessman in real life, quote.
Got you right.
So it's a hard thing. I have to do this. I have to help other people because these methods I found helped me. So I figured it could help others. So that's it. That's how you can find me, Daniel at quitthebottle.com.
I love that, and I can't vouch for you personally because I just met you today. By the way, we're recording this on July the 7th is when we're recording. Forgot to say that from last week's episode. That's why you've heard this a few weeks after. We've let our shows go a little bit later, so the current event we talked about last week was a little delayed, and that's kind of why. But I can tell you, the audience, in kind of meeting you and talking to you, Daniel, that you're passionate. You value just what you just said, helping people. It's about getting your message out. I want to quote you by saying, if you're coaching people or working with people and sharing this method to get sober, and it only helps one individual, that's what it's all about. And I can feel that from you talking to you. And I just appreciate what you're doing, and I think it's really valuable work. So definitely have a conversation with this guy. You know what? Sometimes the biggest step that you can take with your relationship with addiction is just that first simple step. It's just a conversation. Have it.
True. True. It's 90% of the work,
Really is.
actually. It
The
really
same
is.
thing goes for, just go to an AA meeting, right?
Same.
Just
Yeah.
take a step, make the phone call to a therapist. Like, don't stay stuck in your own world repetitively doing the same thing. They say in the 12-step program, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results,
Yeah.
right? Just make the call, make the step, just the small conversation, right?
Yeah. And it's really just an email. I mean,
There you go. Even more. Yeah.
you don't have to talk to me in person. You don't have to jump on a Zoom call. Just write an email. It's just, hey, Daniel, that's enough. And I'm going to get back to you. And yeah, I think it's really important to know that you're not alone out there.
Oh, way important.
I was a drunk for over 30 years and I managed to get out of it. So if I, average guy, managed to get out of it, you can get out of it too.
I love that. I love that a lot. So I think what I want to do, because I read these things, I don't like doing reading on the show, and I want to get away from the disease model that we talked a lot about last episode and towards the end there. But I think what I want to do, just because I got it prepared, and I think it's a cool way of looking at some of the crazy science to all of this, like what we've learned about addiction and what we kind of know. And as with most things with science, when you learn about something, you realize there's holes in what we know, and and it becomes more holes than what you learn. The more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. And I think that when it comes to addiction, when we're looking at the brain and neurology and all of these things, like, dude, we don't know jack crap about neurology and the brain. Like, I would submit to you. I've talked to neurologists on this thing, and dude, we don't know how minerals and neuro processing goes. And I could speak intelligently about the limbic system and the amygdala, and GABA is another neurotransmitter we don't even talk about. Like, there's we don't we haven't touched the surface on what we're learning about this stuff, I would maintain. But we are learning some. And I want to read through some of these things. And I think what I want to do, because it gives an idea of the disease concept and what we understand about the brain, I want to spend a whole lot of time with it, but I want to read it and see what you think about it and what I think about it for just a couple quick comments. And then we have way more cool things to get to in recovery topics. Does that sound agreeable?
Go ahead.
Okay, so this was actually in 1992. It was PubMD. Now, this one I thought Daniel's going to like, right? Because they say you can't use a disease model. It didn't make any sense to these guys when they were writing this. So this is and these are actually studies. Like, these are journally studies. So bear with this, but there's the point is, just think of the big picture and what the point is that they're trying to make. So PubMD says, no, not a disease model. Excessive drinking can cause physical disease and involve physical dependence without, therefore, being a disease itself. The disease concept, in quotes, of alcoholism is not needed to justify medical intervention or a caring approach to those who are dependent on alcohol. There is a specific and general version of the disease concept of alcoholism. The specific disease concept, associated mainly with the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, is contradicted by empirical evidence and unhelpful for preventative and treatment responses to problem drinking, especially for the effort to detect and modify problem drinking at an early stage. The more general disease concept shares these disadvantages and is also ineffective in engendering sympathetic attitudes towards problem drinkers among the general public. It is more useful to view problem drinking as the result of the interaction between the individual's personality and the social context in which he or she has learned how to drink. Okay, that's what their sort of summary of their article and research come to. You want to make any quick comments, and I'll make some quick comments and move to the next. What do you think about that? I figured you might like that one, man.
Yeah, I kind of like it, because again, I think it's not a disease as such. It can become a disease because of the dependency, because of the harm you're doing to your body by poisoning yourself. But as such, to start with, I agree. I tend to agree after our last conversation. I tend to agree that actually it's not a disease. But from another point of view, as you taught me last week, to diagnose or to get an idea of what's going wrong and to have a list of symptoms, you could call it a disease because there is a list of symptoms.
Right.
But then again, yeah, as I said before, one could use it as an excuse.
I
to
think what
be
worries
ill.
me about this and what they're writing, particularly the last part of what they're saying here, right? The more general disease concept shares disadvantages and is also ineffective in endangering sympathetic attitudes towards problem drinkers among the general public. I don't care whether it's people, shame you for having diabetes or not. You know, yeah, we need to change the cultural view of this. Like, alcoholics are some of the smartest people I've met. I mean that. They really are amazing people. And the resiliency that they develop going through hell and back. They're the living example of essentially dying a lot of ways and then revigorating their life. Like, dude, I feel like you're amazing, Daniel. Having used heroin, if you listen to the last episode and more of your story, and alcohol out the ass, like an incredible amount that there people have used substances to the point that they shouldn't be walking. Yet the body's resiliency and now recovery and sober for 4 years, like that's just, in the words of my son, that's badass. There's nothing degenerative about that. There's nothing shameful about that. There's not, like, it's amazing. And yet these guys are worried about calling it a disease because it's going to make the public think they're stupid. Like, that's,
Yeah, but yeah,
yeah,
I think I know what they're meant with that. And I think if you call it a disease, a lot of people uh, will panic
yeah,
and will say, "Oh, because I have 2 glasses of wine every evening, I'm ill, incurably ill. I'm screwed. I gotta
yeah,
drink
which
more.
just
Maybe
doesn't
that's
mean
the
that.
reason." Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it could be. But I don't agree with that statement either. Um, I don't give a damn if what the public thinks. We have a
right.
problem with alcohol in our society.
And another thing is that they talk about the social context and learning to drink. Like, this is not a learned behavior, I believe. And these next things will demonstrate that a little bit. Okay. The next one, real quick, is neuroscience studies with rats. I thought this was pretty cool. I don't like to read studies. I like the people do the studies, learn about it, and then tell me about it at conferences. But bear with me because this stuff gets us a little bit sciencey. So this is actually from 2018. The new research confirms earlier work showing this is true for rats, but it takes things a step further and supports a study design that could help scientists better understand addiction biology and possibly develop more effective therapies for human addictive behaviors. Led by a team at Linköping, sorry for the pronunciation, University in Sweden. Not to be confused, Daniel, with Switzerland, by the way, right? Those Swedes, right? Anyway, the researchers found that when given a choice between alcohol and a tastier, more biological desirable sugar substitute, a subgroup of rats consistently preferred the alcohol. The authors further identified a specific brain region and molecular dysfunction most likely responsible for these addictive tendencies. They believe their findings and study design could be steps towards developing an effective pharmaceutical therapy for alcohol addiction. We love those pills, right? But anyway, a kind of treatment that has eluded researchers for years. A taste for sweetness is evolutionary and embedded in the mammalian brain. In the wild, sugar translates into fast calories and improved survival odds. For the new study, 32 rats were trained to sip a 20-ounce alcohol solution for 10 weeks until it became habit. They were then presented with a daily choice between more alcohol or a solution of the non caloric sweetener saccharin. It's the artificial sweetener providing sugary tasting enticing without the potential confounding variable of actual calories. The majority of the rats vastly preferred the Fox sugar over the alcohol option. But the fact that four rats, or 12.5% of the total, stuck with the alcohol was telling the senior authors, Marcus Hellig, director of Center for Social and Effective Neuroscience at Linköping, given the rate of alcohol misuse in humans is around 15%. So Heilig expanded the study. There were four rats who went for the alcohol despite the more natural reward of sweetness. He says, we built on that in 600 animals. Later, we found that a very stable proportion of the population chose alcohol. What's more, the quote unquote addicted rats still chose alcohol even when it meant receiving an unpleasant foot shock. And then they started in the article talking about genes later on. In collaboration with co-author and University of Texas at Austin Research Science, Dane Mayfield, Hillig's team found that in brain samples from deceased humans who had suffered from the alcohol addiction, GAT-3 levels were markedly lower in the amygdala, generally considered the brain's emotion center. Later on in the article, they suggested that research intervention of GABA, which is a different neurotransmitter, is something that they see linked kind of as well. So I know that was a lot. Thank you for bearing with me. I don't like reading on the show, but let me just open up. What do you take from that? Does that do anything in your brain?
I think it's stupid.
It's stupid.
It's completely stupid. It
How
has
so?
been proven a lot of time that animal experimentation is not reliable at all. So you compare a rat to a divine and creative and powerful human being. That's crap.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know. I can catch my cat. My wife would kill me.
Yeah,
And
don't do that, Daniel. Don't do that.
give him alcohol for 10 days and he's be addicted to alcohol because alcohol is an addictive substance, period. And because of some rats do that and some rats, we're talking about rats. They have brains small like that. Are you fucking kidding me?
Okay.
Sorry, but no, sorry. I can't.
Well,
I don't
I
know
think
about, no, sorry, but I don't know about you. Are you spiritual?
I am. Yes, I am.
Do you believe in a higher consciousness?
I do.
Okay. So do we really have to talk about rats
Well,
as
the
human
reason why I pulled
beings?
that out, Daniel, is because it's fascinating the way that we've researched different aspects of the brain and the influence of gabapentin, which the neurotransmitter, and what we're learning about the brain scans. The next one that I was going to read is a little bit about, you know, scans that we're looking at with people and human brains and the functions that we're learning about. Because as we talked about last time, there does seem to be genetic numbers. And what was really interesting about the last one with the rats to me is that since we began understanding addiction, in about the 60s, the 50s and the 60s is when we started to really realize, holy crap, there's a problem with addiction, this alcohol thing, right? Before that, it was just the town drunk and it wasn't a big deal. We didn't really understand it, but then we began to study and follow this stuff, right? In the 60s and then in the 70s. And all the way through for the last 50 years, this number of about 10 to 15% has totally held stable with what we see in being able to diagnose this or not. And
Because you
that
tested it
just
on rats?
no, not on rats. Sorry, we're done with the rats. It was just yeah. Those are the research people. They're smarter
Yeah,
people than
but
me.
let me come back to you with Dr. Dispenza. Big fan of it. I told you last time already.
You did.
He has shown by studies, by measurements of the neuron and brain stuff and all that, I have no clue, that through meditation, you change your brain, you change your physiology, you
Couldn't agree
change your
more.
genetics, you change your genetics.
Yeah.
So if the next thing you're going to read is again about rats, I'm going to cut that call, man.
You're gonna hang
Because
up.
show me a rat meditating and then we can talk.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think that, what's interesting about that and what I do in the therapy realm, we're learning about brain plasticity and we're learning about, you know, behavior and motivation and the domain that we have over our own bodies. And they have done studies with brain functioning, MRI scales and studies and whatever that's way above me as well. But that just with cognitive practices, the cognitive behavioral therapy models and modalities that we work with, that you literally change the brain functioning of your frontal cortex. Like,
Yeah.
and they can map it, they can track it, they can
Yeah,
see it. It's
of course.
awesome. It's amazing, right? This stuff really does work. And meditation, I'll give you another one. My ex co host, or I guess he's still around, Craig, talks very much about just breathing,
Yeah,
learning how to breathe and the
yeah,
power behind what you do in decreasing your sympathetic nervous system when you learn how to breathe through your diaphragm and through your nose. Even neurologically, it's different or not neurologically, but in your sinuses, there's a lot that happens with breathing through your nose as we're supposed to be, not mouth breathers. Like
Yeah.
you can influence the way you literally feel in the moment right now.
Yeah. Did you ever hear about Kundalini breathing?
About what?
Kundalini breathing.
Clearly, I didn't. Kundalini. That sounds interesting.
Kundalini.
That sounds
It's
awesome. What is that?
comes from India, but it's actually your contract your how it's called in English, the spot between your genitals and your asshole. You
Holy
know, that
crap!
little
What did we just do?
that little spot there.
We got Neil off the mic on that one.
Is that the perineum or the
Yeah,
Kegels?
perineum.
Okay.
Perineum. Okay.
Okay, so you contract this muscle and you contract your lower abdomen and your higher abdomen, and you start breathing very slowly in, and you imagine actually that you pulling your spinal cord liquid up to the brain.
Oh, that's super cool. I'm trying it a little bit right now. Like that's
No. Don't try like that. You have to practice it. It's very difficult
clearly.
because it's against our natural breathing. Because if you contract all your perineum, your lower abdomen, your upper abdomen, and you're still breathing, that's not working normally. You have to train it. It's quite difficult.
It feels weird to try to do it. Yeah, it feels very weird.
Yeah. So, but what happens actually if you practice it? I had to practice it for weeks, but once it's working, what happens is that you feel the energy in your brain. You actually feel the tickling on your skull just by breathing differently. You change your energy field. Did you know that we have a magnetic field around us?
I've heard there's a little bit of that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So
electrical and matter and yeah.
Yeah, and it's measurable.
Okay.
And that magnetic field can go as far as 3 meters. That's about 10 feet, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. Around you. Okay, so we have an energy field that's big, that's huge. We can, and I come back to addiction, and we can influence that. So if we are living in stress mode, flight or fight mode, we are living in these 3 lower energy centers, also called chakras.
Oh, and yes, I know more about that.
What happens then is we drain energy from that field. And that's Dr. Dispenza, that's not from me. And what happens if we abuse substances, poisonic substances, we drain, we go in that stress mode. We always in that stress mode. I said that last time with the fire alarm.
Right.
Having a drink to cope with stress is like putting off the fire alarm and call the firefighters and tell them, hey, fire is off. But you just shut down the alarm. So what happens there is we drain energy, but we can build up that energy again by meditating, by breathing, as you say. So come again with rats.
Well, hey, I was just thinking, do I want to go with this next one or not? I think we spent enough time on it, but these guys are talking about, let me see. The scanning of the brain and 1.5
we are able to change our body. We are able to change our physiology,
right?
By thinking differently, by having different emotions and having different thoughts, because we're able to change the way we think and the way we feel, right? So we are very, very powerful beings, actually.
But there's a limit to that, and that's where I think I'm looking at some of these weird science things that we're trying to understand what's going on in the brain. Because what I don't want to have happen here is to have people listen. I'm gonna go back to this, and hear the show and say, hey, I've had this problem with alcohol. I've been sober for 5 years now, 6 years, and I can change my life and do controlled use and have domain over my physical body. There's no reason why I can't have just like 3 beers. Look, I've been able to have 3 beers, never more than 4 beers over the next, over the last 4.5 weeks. I don't really have this crap. These people were talking about this addiction stuff. That's what really gets me concerned, and it's neat, for lack of a better word, that we are beginning to learn a little bit about brain slicings and whatever these smart people are doing with MRIs, and yeah, maybe, Daniel, what we're learning about from rats and substances. I mean, they can extrapolate what they want to scientifically and teach us about that. That's I have no problem with that, because there is a biological difference, and part of the reconciliation is being sober is the only thing that we know of as an effective recommendation once we've identified the idea of addiction. And there's something different. Even though we don't know it, we know it by anecdotal experience for the last 50, 60, 70 years of working with people that have been trying to do controlled drinking, that have addiction. It doesn't seem possible. That's the concern. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I'm totally with you on that. Even if we disagree on it, but I'm totally with you that you can't just say, okay, I'm the master of the universe, I'm the master of my body and over my brain, so I can go back and poison myself again.
Yeah.
But again, what's the point? What's the point of going back to something that almost destroyed your life?
Right. It does. It
I
defies
think
logic.
it's a society thing. Let's take the example of cigarettes. A former smoker would never, ever talk about going back to controlled smoking, right?
Probably true. Yeah. Right.
But in World War II, they gave cigarettes to the GIs, telling them that makes them brave and courageous and fearless and whatnot.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. And that actually smoking cigarettes is healthy.
Yeah. There was a
So,
lot of. They're paying the piper now with the liabilities that they've
and
accumulated.
I say, it's just, I state that. Correct me if I'm wrong or if you disagree. I say, if back then you would have stopped smoking, some people would also have spoken about going back to controlled smoking. But as of now, smoking is totally, as you said before, your kids is like, what, smoking? What? Pooh, how stupid, what, unimaginable.
Yeah.
And with alcohol, it's still here. It's still in society. It's still widely accepted. It's still considered something cool and easy to do. And I think one of the reasons why, to use your term, recovering addicts want to return to controlled drinking is because everybody else is drinking.
That's a big part of it. Yeah.
If nobody else would drinking, why would I return to it? And the
Mhm.
people I worked with, if I talk to them after a month, they say, what? I had this French guy, he was binge drinking on red wine, like bottles and bottles of red wine a day.
Yeah. Wow.
And he's done with that. He goes to the supermarket, he's standing in front of the wine alley, and he's like, what the hell? Why is there so much poison in here? You know, because he changed the way he looked at it. And I can't stress that enough. If you change the way you look at something, you change your brain, and therefore you change your body too, because it's interrelated, right? And if you change these two things, I say, then you got rid of that addiction part, and you got rid of, I can do controlled drinking. I love to say it, to call it controlled poisoning. How does that sound, right? Why would one go back to controlled poisoning?
There's a thing that has been kind of confusing to me, but I've seen it over the years, and people talk about this. Like, when you start talking about addiction, everyone kind of talks about that person who just, clearly had a drinking problem. Their life was a mess, some legal troubles, whatever, relationship troubles. They had enough of the signs and the symptoms that we were looking at, and up and just decided one day, boom, I'm done.
Yeah.
And they just put it away and they're done with it, as opposed to people that have, you mentioned last episode, you have maybe a 50-50 recidivism rate for so far as relapse as it goes. And, you know, why is that? How can some people just be bam done with it, and then other people, it's a struggle. I mean, this is a real struggle to get off of this stuff. And my theory about that, my take on that is that, like you just kind of described, and that's part of what I think you described as your method that you work with people on. People can reach a crystal clear clarity about what alcohol represents for me in my life. And because of that crystal clear reality, no more. It's just over. And I work with people in therapy, my realm, to accomplish that. As a matter of fact, we talk about, you may remember from your days in rehab when you went to rehab some of these buzzwords, right? We talk about relapse prevention and we talk about triggers. You talked about it a little bit last time, hearing the snap of the bottle, and there's so many things that brain waves that we just get triggered into, like, boom, I'm using. Anyway, one of the coolest relapse prevention tools to help manage maintaining sobriety is identifying that one moment, right? That one moment or that one day, that one event that just represents, like, I don't want this anymore. Like this. And I'll have people draw a picture. Sometimes we're writing a paragraph. Sometimes we're, doing a collage, anything. And you carry that around with you. And anytime you have one of these triggers, which happens all the time, you pull that out of your pocket and you look at it like, that is what I don't want anymore.
Excellent.
It's a
Excellent.
powerful tool.
Yeah, and I think why some people succeed and others not is one reason could be that for those who don't succeed yet, the pivotal moment was not yet there. That moment that changed your life.
Right. They talk about
moments,
rock bottom too as another concept. I don't particularly like that one, but
I totally like that.
Yeah.
But rock bottom can mean different things.
Absolutely.
If I may, I can tell you some of these moments in my drinking career. I like the word drinking career.
Yeah, they say that, right?
I could have cars in the ditch, fighting police, spending, because in Switzerland you don't go to jail, you just pay fines. Spending thousands and thousands of Swiss francs on fines. They took away my license several times for years. And before I was a businessman, I was a craftsman. So imagine a craftsman without a car.
A craftsman? Oh, craft. You're saying
craftsman.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Stonemason. Without a car, it's impossible.
Yeah, it
so
won't work
all
well.
these things could be pivotal moments. And the story you told last time with me laying in the street, that's not made up. That really happened several times. I even woke up in my vomit.
Right.
That's not to write down because people don't want to hear that shit. But could also be a pivotal moment. It wasn't.
Right.
I even had, when I wrote my book, I had this story in mind, and I asked my wife, do you remember that moment? Such and such moment, me coming home completely wasted? Yeah. And she came up with another moment that I didn't recall. Me sitting in my car in front of the house, being so fucking wasted that I had to text my wife that she comes out to help me get out of the freaking car to get into the house. But I was driving still.
Of course.
And that wasn't the pivoting moment in my life. That could have been. I mean, that's a moment, right?
You've described a few.
My moment was another car accident. I hit a wall frontally. And I walked away totally sound. The car was warped. It wasn't the car. You couldn't tell the brand of the car anymore.
Mm.
And I had no scratch. I wear glasses. Not even the glasses were still straight. But what was the pivotal moment for me was that next day, we went to the scrapyard to get the belongings out of what used to be a car.
Right.
And usually my wife would say in these moments, yeah, how much longer are you going to do that? You have to kill somebody on the road, all
Trying
these
to infuse
things.
logic. Yeah.
Yes. And what happened? I looked at her and she didn't look at me. She looked at the rest of the car and she didn't say one single word. And that for me was the pivotal moment. That was
Right.
like a punch in my belly, really like, bah! And when I tell you this, I can feel that punch again.
Right. Keep that
And
feeling, because that's a sober
no, I don't need,
creator.
I know
Yeah.
I don't need that anymore
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I know, but in the beginning, what you describe with collages and stuff like that, that helped to
Right.
remind myself of that punch.
Right. Yeah,
But
that's a
then
powerful
still,
story.
yeah, but then still, it took me 1.5 years
Yeah.
from that pivotal moment to actually find that method that I'm using now for others that finally freed me from that substance.
Well, I'm glad that you added that. I didn't expect that, and I'm glad to hear that, because that is what we do in the substance abuse and therapy world as well. You may go to a rehab facility and then go back and relapse, and then you go to just a therapy person like me, and you begin to build. You're building recovery. Relapse sometimes is even a part of that. Continued use after your moment. It's kind of why I don't like Daniel, the rock bottom moment that is
Yeah,
described. I like to think of it as a spiral down, and they say in AA particularly, or in recovering fields, it ends in jails, institutions, or death. And I've generally seen that to be generally the truth if you continue using. But at any given point on this spiral down, you can get off of that
yeah,
ride. You
yeah,
don't have to go all the way down to the bottom of a rock bottom.
yeah,
Like, it can be right now. And I had a client describe to me, you know what his rock bottom was, or his moment, the time that he got off of his ride. He was just in his living room drinking like any other day, not particularly trash, not particularly eventful, but he knew that his relationship with alcohol was destructive in his life, and he reached down to the table to get his beer, and at that exact moment, his son or daughter, I forget, reached up to be grasped by him. And in that split second, he decided to reach up and pick up his daughter instead of the beer, and he never picked up another beer in his life,
amazing,
at least at the time that he met me, right?
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like, that's recovery from something that we identify as addiction. And you, if you're listening to this, you can do that. But I think that there's also an identification of identifying that this alcohol relationship is not okay for me.
yeah,
I'm allergic. Whatever you
yeah,
want to think, it needs to stop
yeah.
for me.
And I'd like to add for the people listening to this, you don't need to wait for a pivotal moment. Actually,
Exactly.
you don't need to trash your car or to hit your wife or your children or whatever horrible things. All it takes actually is a decision. And I experienced that with the people. You asked me in the last episode how many people are succeeding and how many are not. Those who took a firm decision, they succeed. Doesn't matter if they work with me or they work with you or they do any program, it needs a firm 100% decision. This has to stop now.
Right.
For idiots like me, it needs a car accident and almost a
Yeah.
wife walking away and almost I destroyed 2 businesses because
Yeah.
of alcohol, right? And
But that's Daniel. That's what people don't understand about addiction. And again, like, that doesn't happen typically with people's relationship with alcohol or other drugs. Like, that's not typical. But how can somebody continue to go through Like somebody might be listening to the story and be like, Daniel, how did you not get that at the first police interaction or the first DUI? Or how did you not get that at at the first time that you got
Because
into a
I'm a
fight? And
stubborn, stupid idiot.
it's something that defies logic. That's like addiction. That definition. Maybe we make that the definition, right? Addiction
Yeah.
totally defies logic. There's no logic to this. That's part of the compulsion. That's part of what people just that don't have addiction cannot wrap their arms around what you have just described. Now, I
Yeah.
don't have addiction myself by the grace of God, and it took me so long to really work with like making sense of these symptoms that we look for in this progression and these ideas. Like I totally get why that's the case because of the trap that people get into. It's amazing.
So I really think it's covering. The covering part is a huge thing. You want to cover something. You don't want to look at something. That's why you use substances to cover things. That might be food, that might be sugar, that might be online gambling, that might be alcohol, that might be whatever. But the thing is, you want to cover something. And as long as you don't find out what it is, you don't gonna succeed.
So that is one of the symptoms that we look down and list on. And you know what? Just for grins and giggles, I want to go down through that again because we did that last episode, but it's good for this conversation. So that as well. So the things that we look at, sort of symptoms of addiction, if you will, loss of control, emotional relief. That's what we're talking about there, covering emotional relief, a concept of progression, a concept of tolerance, gulping. I'm not going to spend any time describing that. Blackout or blackouts, problem in life area associated to use, increased frequency, a concept that we talked about last episode, preoccupation, guilt associated to use, avoidance in talking about the use, hiding beverages, which quick pause there. I didn't pause long enough last episode, but I get fascinated when alcoholics or drug addicts like describe to me the different hiding experiences that they've had. And honestly, that one to me is a pretty big red flag. People just don't typically hide their alcohol. But dude, I'm talking about people putting bottles in the toilet so that when they go to the toilet, they can pull the toilet lids off and get their liquor. It's like, who does this kind of stuff? But these crazy behaviors like hiding your supply begins to be commonplace in an alcoholic's
I
life, if
did
that
that
makes
too.
sense. Yeah, I don't understand that, but yeah. Okay, lying about the use, loss
can
of other
explain it.
interests. What's that?
I can explain to you why.
Okay, give me one more second. And then legal and other social issues, physical withdrawal symptoms occur, and then periods of forced abstinence are some of the signs. That's what we're kind of looking for. Go ahead. What do you have there?
So the hiding thing is
Oh yeah,
because you're aware of having a problem
right,
and you want to hide it
right.
from yourself. It's as easy as that. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
As soon as I admitted to my wife, I think I have a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have to hide anymore because it was in the open.
It's a good
I
transition.
still was a fucking drunk,
Right.
but I didn't have to hide in front of my wife. So I
You know,
didn't have to hide a bottle anywhere. That's the thing. That's why we hide, because we discovered we have a problem, but we can't admit. So we
right.
hide.
I'm holding up on the video a big book, and it's Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a good transition for us. But you made me think of it because of the very first step of their 12-step stuff, right? We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Like the
Yeah.
reality of being able to admit, whether it's to your wife, whether it's to yourself, whether it's the first time that you go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, whether it's the first time that you say to your therapist. In my therapy relationship, I've had people in therapy with me for 8, 9, 10 months, a year or year and a half, and then they identify it and they can admit it or speak it the truth out loud.
Yeah.
And that is a huge step in identifying. It's really arguably the first step, that you admit to yourself and or others that my relationship with alcohol is not working, is not okay. It's huge.
I agree with that, but I don't agree with the wording they're using, that
Yeah,
they are
okay. I didn't figure
powerless.
you would. This is going to be an audience. This is going to be a transition to a battle area, I suspect.
Yeah, because
Let's go, buddy.
simply of the word powerless.
Okay, right?
If I admit having a problem, I can admit of seeking help. I can admit that I'm not able to solve this on my own. But if I say I'm powerless, that's failure, pure.
Mm-hmm.
That's failure from the beginning. I'm powerless. I give that to the hands of some higher spirit or whatever. That's bollocks. Sorry. But
Well,
I'm
there's a
holding
lot of.
up my book here.
Go ahead.
Let me
Oh, I
state
love it. I love
something.
it. Get a good look at that. I love that.
Win the battle. Control the alcohol in 30 days or less.
That's awesome. And they can find that on Amazon.com. And where can they get all that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So here's another thing that the AA state. Basically, the unhappiest person in the world is a chronic alcoholic who has an insistent yearning to enjoy life as he once knew, but cannot picture life without alcohol. He has a heartbreaking obsession that by some miracle of control, he will be able to do so then. By getting this book, and let's find what does that mean? Being in control.
These are good questions, right? So being in control and the issue of powerlessness that people struggle with in early in the recovery process are good questions. And the way that I've made sense of it is actually we talked about this last episode. So the powerlessness reality is the unfortunate reality that seems to be about the biological aspects that we were talking about. For whatever reason that we cannot understand biologically, an alcoholic or drug addicted body cannot return. You've heard this theme, right? Cannot return to controlled use. That's the powerlessness. That's the reality of compulsion. That's the reality of progression. And there's definitions to each one of these symptoms.
But
Yeah.
that's the reality of a society thinking that alcohol is something normal. If you put that away from the equation, we talked about smoking before, then why would anybody being sensed go back to something that poisons and go back to something that destroys his life? That's only because the society still thinks that drinking alcohol, drinking poison is something completely normal. Did you know that if you have one sip of pure alcohol, it kills you?
Probably
So we're talking poison here.
Yeah, it's big stuff.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's going back of controlled poisoning. It's only because the society states still that drinking alcohol is something completely normal, which in my opinion, it's not.
Well,
It's
here's the trouble.
It's
Here's
weird.
here's the trouble.
Why human? No,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Why human beings are poisoning themselves? And I don't think that's biological or genetical or whatever. I think that's purely a society problem. If we human beings would live together in a better way, in a more kind and loving way, caring for each other, actually.
Yeah, that'd be refreshing.
That would be the solution. I just say that there would be no addiction problems at all. It's a society problem. That whole fucking addiction things is a society problem because we don't care. If someone would have cared, I told you in the last episode that I sensed as a 9-year-old already that something's wrong with the planet and that everybody told me that I was wrong and that tore my soul apart. If we lived in another society, in a more caring and kind society, that would never have happened. So I never have been an alcoholic or a drunk or whatever you want to call it. And that stupid idea of going back to something that is completely destroying your life in a controlled way. I mean, that's completely stupid.
Yeah.
If I hit you in the face, you don't come back to get more.
I might come back to hit you back. No. Now, here's the thing that let's extend this a little bit, right? So we're talking about alcohol, but before the mics came on, we were going to be able to add it now. We were talking about a concept of cross addiction, which is where you're not just addicted to one substance, you have the euphoric reaction to the other ones, though you have a drug of choice, which is another concept in the addictions field. But we also talked about what are called the process addictions. So, people think of addiction weird in the way that culture now has been talking about it. But you do not get addicted to picking your nails. You don't get addicted to football. You don't get addicted to cars. You're really into cars, but you don't get addicted to cars or trees. Yeah, come on, man. You get addicted to drugs and alcohol, pot, weed, pills, all the substances
Yeah.
and whatnot. Sugar as well, like we talked about. But you get addicted to substances and then 4 specific things: gambling and debting, by the way. Debting is another component of gambling. Eating addictions, sex addictions, and we're a little not sure around the world, but you guys over in the World Health Organization are ahead of us in the States. You've identified formally online video gaming addictions. And we suspect that that's because of some of the biological things, yes, Daniel, that we learned about in rats, by the way, and other ways. We believe that the systems in the brain, that was a joke, I'm just poking you.
Yeah.
But we've learned the euphoric systems in the brain might operate differently. So yeah, you ask a really legitimate question that challenged me to think about. Like I said, I'm not in recovery. I like video games. Okay. I enjoy playing StarCraft, especially. And right now I'm playing Destiny. And I got Star Wars Heroes on my phone. And I love to spend 5 minutes just debriefing my brain and playing that on my phone. But here's the difference. Here's the difference. People that have addiction and play video games literally get progressively engaged in the endorphin based system we suspect in their brain. Daniel, they're playing 17 hours in a 24-hour period of time.
Okay.
More days through the week than not.
Okay.
It's like exorbitant.
So according to that theory, and I call it a theory to provoke you a little bit.
Fair enough.
I, as an addictive personality, 3 addictions, right? So obviously I have that genetic preposition to be addicted to things.
Okay.
Okay. I play video games too, but I'm freaking not addicted to them. I play poker too. I'm not addicted to that.
Yeah.
How do you explain that?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
And
I submit to you. I
the
submit to
flaw
you.
of that theory.
It is a hole, no doubt about it. I couldn't agree with you more. I also will throw you another one that is sort of in the opposite direction, right? Like, there are a lot of people that are sober in 12-step programs or around the world that if we were to take a sexual history, we would very possibly find a whole crap load of a porn that's being consumed compulsively. I'm talking about pretty extensively, not your 15, 20, 30-minute pop every couple times a month, like compulsively. But yet they're sober from alcohol, drugs, and whatnot. Is that called recovery? Well, you got to question that because you're compulsively doing something else. You've gravitated over and replaced it with something else.
Yeah.
So the main point here is that like this is dangerous. I don't think that you would have to, Daniel, be careful about stopping video games, but you really need to be careful if you're going to get a job in Las Vegas and think that you're going to be compulsively engaged in gambling most days because we know that the endorphin centers might get triggered. The fact that they haven't for you, great, but the risks are there in how that goes. Same thing with cigarettes. Drives me nuts. You go back to cigarettes. back when I even started this stuff in 1985, started learning about it in school and whatever. Well, maybe 1990, but right, they never. And from my non-addicted brain, I was able to question, why are you guys going to addiction recovery groups and drinking coffee like crazy, caffeine, and smoking like a pack an hour at AA meetings and talking about recovery?
Yeah.
It's great. You got off of alcohol and people are so much better than they were when they were actively in their active addiction with alcohol. But my question was well, what's going on there? How do we, how do we differentiate these things? And I don't think, Daniel, to answer your question, I don't think we have an answer yet.
I don't think it's biological, really not.
Yeah, you really
My
don't.
wife still smokes, right?
What's that? Your wife does?
My wife still smokes cigarettes, and I still love her deeply, even if sometimes it's
yeah,
but
right. Stinky.
love is strong. Love is stronger than that. But as I said before, you can drown me in beer. You can pour that stuff over me. I would never touch it again. So how do you explain that? If I would be an addictive personality, as that theory, and I call it a theory, states, if you pour beer over me, I would relapse. If you put me into Las Vegas, I would be gambling addicted. I played a lot of online poker and I lost a lot of money.
Ouch.
That's why I stopped it.
Okay.
But I never considered myself being addicted to online poker for that sort. Because I know I'm kind of an expert in addiction. I had 3 of them. And we can sit down and play your online games or your video games or whatever. Doesn't bother me. I can eat sugar. I won't be addicted to sugar either. So something's wrong with that theory. I don't think it's biological. I think it's here. I think if you go to the point of finding the reason why you're taking substances in an excessive way, then you got rid of it. And I'm sure your clients, if they go down to the point, you never see them again because they solved the problem, right?
If they go down to the point, what did you say? What did you say?
They go down to the point, to the reason why they're
gotcha.
addicted.
Yeah.
You never see them again. So what has this biological aspect to do with it? My father drinks a beer every once in a while. He never got addicted to it. On the other hand, he smoked cigarettes and cigars and pipe, and he had to stop that deliberately. He said, okay, no, that, and he's a Dr. MD. He had to stop it. But would that mean if I have this biological addictive personality, my father would have it too?
Maybe, maybe not. That's the thing. Yeah, it's not 100% by any measure.
Something's wrong with that. I don't know what, but something's not right with that theory.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I truly believe that at some point we're going to understand the neurology better, and the brain scans and the gremlins, if you will, that rattle around in our biological bodies. Honestly, for lots of genetic diseases that we get, lupus and the different why our bodies turn against our bodies and have the autoimmune systems fight each other, such as you get with fibromyalgia. We don't understand a lot of these sort of really dynamic autoimmune diseases and addictions like we're talking about today, biologically, neurologically, biochemically. Dude, there's some pretty complicated things.
According to Dispenza, it's all due to low frequency.
Say again?
Like low frequency. Again, you're drawing energy from your energy field, and that makes your body sick and turn onto itself.
I don't even know what you just said. That's above my pay. That's above my pay grade.
Go read some books from Dr. Dispenza. It will open a whole new world to you.
Well, there's a lot of things like that, and I've been exposed to some of those things. You know, you mentioned chakras, and there's different forms of the mental health field that kind of goes with that. You know, there's what's the stuff? My brain's just tired now. It's late in the day. Um, the uh, shoot, I'm blanking. There's some modalities that people work in therapy where you're working with energy centers and
Yeah.
meridian tapping and
Yeah.
you know, some of those types of stuff. I'm just kind of brain tired to go more intelligently into those things, and so I've studied some of those things, and I think they're fantastically cool.
It's
What's
working.
interesting is there's no immediate answer though. Like I have the answer in the mental health, the best method, the best procedure.
No,
You know, it
no,
just
there's
doesn't.
not.
It's not out there
No, it's not. It's not. I think if someone
yet.
goes to an AA meeting and it helps, fine, perfect, cool, awesome. If someone says, "Oh, I want to talk to Daniel," cool, awesome. If it helps, awesome. If
Right.
someone takes, "Oh no, Chris is the man to go," fine. I think what we're doing here, we two, is a luxury debate about possibilities, about theories, about things and stuff. But the
Bottom line,
main
get
thing,
help. What I hear you saying is bottom line, get help.
yeah, there is help out there. You're not alone with that shit.
Yeah.
There are people out there helping you, and different approaches, like always in life, different points of view might be good for you, might be good for others, might be not same for you. I had coaching clients. After one call, they said, "You know what, Daniel? I think you're an idiot." Okay, fine. But that's
I could
okay.
see why they would say that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I'm the first one admitting that I'm an idiot. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been drunk for 30 years. But you know, that's the thing. There is help, and there are different possibilities. It's not impossible to get rid of that shit. Really not. Take a decision, and 90% of the work is done.
Yeah, I think we can really join on that. And the thing that maybe to highlight as we start taxiing in for a landing here is like there is life after this. I mean, people that are in the middle of their active addiction, drinking or using career kind of really get so consumed that they don't really understand what in the hell are you talking about? How do I live without this in my life? And I'm here to tell you, I've seen people, you know, be able to kind of traverse the identification. I need help. I need this out of my life. And when you're sober, you, Daniel, you speak to it like you're really living. You're really, you know,
Um,
I get this. Let me go a little further, and then
yeah,
I'll let you get in there because you know there was a radio personality locally, and it really struck me where he read some of his formal treatment chart. Literally, he kept it from when he went into rehab. And I didn't know that at the time he was like 23 years sober, and every year on his sober birthday, he celebrates that for him, and he read it on air, and he dramatically talked about how he literally came back from the living dead, the walking dead, and talked about the appreciation that he had, you know, marking it just with that through this process of like being so grateful, so alive, so like people that are in recovery are the most humble people I've ever met because they've been to hell and back and they understand what living really is. It's just amazing to me.
it is. It is, and I can tell to your audience that it's not only getting back to life; it's getting real life back.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Everything is better. Um, as I said many times before, it's a poison. So physically, even 2 weeks after stopping, your body is getting better. The walk to the bathroom is better. Libido is better. Your appetite is better. You actually smell and taste things again. These are
Yeah.
the first step, and it gets better and better. You remember phone numbers without writing them down. You can calculate things in your head again. And
Yeah.
I can go on for hours and hours and hours. And just to get a little bit into spirituality, maybe you're getting stronger, you're getting more confident, you're getting more loving, more kind, you're having new friends. Don't worry about losing your old friends. Life will handle that on itself.
Right.
Business, career, relationship, just everything is getting better. There is actually no disadvantage in getting sober. There are only advantages. Why? Because it's a freaking poison.
Right. Right. I do want to add something that's interesting here, though, because I love everything you said, and I tried to set that up in saying what is living and all. But there is something that is important, and particularly for alcohol, that I find people struggle with, which might have been a part of your year and a half after your moment where your wife sort of, non-verbally gut punched you, right? There's something called PAWS, post-acute withdrawal syndrome. Do you ever hear of this?
No.
Okay. This is a powerful reality that people really struggle with in the earlier stages and what's referred to really as early recovery. And I think that's really the first 2 years of recovery, if you will, of sobriety, I meant to say. And the reality of it is, you get through the immediate detox, the shakes and the danger for seizures and all of that. That's the simple, easy first part, and then alcohol's all out of your system. But we know that there's something called post-acute withdrawal syndrome that I don't know that we really physically fully understand either, but we can markedly see periods of time where your sleep is still affected. And this is several months after sobriety. And you go through an episode with this where your body's like, holy shit, I'm still pissed off with you, right? And then it gets better and it goes away, but then it comes back and your body gets pissed off again, even though you're sober for 8 months. And we have a show, I think, on post acute withdrawal syndrome itself. At some point, I think we did it, but the episodes of that decrease in length and they decrease in frequency as you continue to stay sober. So I want to be encouraging, because when you're immediately in early recovery, you get frustrated. You're like, dude, I still feel like shit. I heard that guy Danny who said it's all this great. I can't remember shit. It's still been 6 months. Okay, well, there's a period of time that your body's really recovering, just physiologically. And I find people just get super discouraged by that along the journey and path of recovery.
I have to disagree.
Oh, wow. Okay. How you going to do that? We're taxiing in for a landing soon. Now we just added a half hour. What do you disagree with
Sorry,
that?
but I have to disagree.
That's okay. That's okay.
I drank up to 10 liters of beer a day. All right. I'm 60 kilograms. I'll let you do the math for American measurements.
Not a chance.
It must be something about 110 pounds or something like that. And I had no withdrawal pains whatsoever. The guy I told you before that drank liters and liters of red wine, he had no withdrawal pains whatsoever. The guy emptying 2 bottles of gin a day, no withdrawal pain whatsoever. And I have a theory about that.
Okay, what's that?
And even after a month, that thing you're describing, we didn't have that. Why? Because we solved the problem. And I state that this post-thing trauma happens only because you don't solve the problem in your head. So it reflects on your body again and back. Body-mind relationship. If something's wrong with your body, there will be something wrong with your brain and vice versa. So if you solve your problem, why you got addicted, then you won't have any withdrawal pain.
Okay. Don't know. It's interesting. I'll have to really think about that. I'm learning as well as we're talking about this and interacting, which is why I love these conversations and talking to people. Some of what might happen with people's process is that their bodies are adjusting, but you're feeling really good and you're encouraged because you've got your life back, your wife back, your job back, your business acumen back, and all of that. And that excitement can be just building momentum. But there are people that fall out of what we call the pink cloud, because life hits. It's going to hit. It's going to be hard. Life is not easy, and people struggle with that. The other thing, but it feels great while things are going well. So you learn how to live, right? They say in 12 step, you live life on life's terms. Because life has crazy stuff that hits you all the time. You know, but some of the PAWS, the post-acute withdrawal syndrome stuff, might have been missed. I pulled it out of my uh, little cabinet just to remind myself because my brain's tired. But the things they talk about are mood swings, anxiety, irritability, tiredness, variable energy, low enthusiasm, variable concentration, and disturbed sleep. So some of those, none of those, or all of those may be a part of the process.
Wait.
Yeah.
The only physical thing you stated here is disturbed sleep. Everything
Oh,
else is in your mind. It's in your brain.
oh no! Come on, mood swings are a component of
Mood swings. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you're in the mood. You're not in the mood. That's emotional.
Uh, yes and no. We understand mood and irritability and anxiety. These are all things that have a part in our brain systems, right?
Yeah.
What I would say to you is like bipolar disorder, for instance. That's not just a spiritual thing or a um, you know
No, it's
social
both.
learning thing.
It's
What they
it's
go
both.
through is their body exploding with chemical reactions that aren't typical. That's why they go manic, so much so that you can become psychotic. And then they'll also go into depression episodes. So there
Yeah.
are some real, I mean, there's science behind some of my field. We understand some of this stuff, but there's also a lot of the social things that you're talking about. So it really is. You know what? I'll go back to the tale of two tapes: the biological over here and the social and emotional. They dynamically interact, right?
Okay.
And both can influence the other,
Okay.
right?
But just you're separating kind of the body from the spirit or from the mind, and that's I mean it's it's one unity. Mind, spirit, and body, physics is you cannot separate them.
I agree. Yeah, I think I agree with
So
that.
so it's all in your mind. It's all in your head. You're getting ill, it's because of low frequency. You're getting cancer, it's because of low frequency. You're getting fucking addicted, it's because you took stupid idiot decisions. And I don't take decisions with my body. I don't know about your body. I take decisions up here. So all the things you stated that is happening to these people after getting sober, it's here.
Hmm.
And that has effects on their bodies. If I tell myself over and over again that I will have withdrawal pain, that I can't sleep for a month, and everybody is telling me that over and over again, guess what happens? I
Yeah.
will have withdrawal pain and I can't sleep for a month. You know what I tell my clients? If you can't sleep, stand up, go watch a Netflix series. Once you're tired, you're gonna sleep. So
You guys
fucking
have
what?
Netflix in Switzerland?
What do you think where we live on the moon?
Fantastic. I was kidding. I was kidding. Yeah, there's a lot of that. I agree. I see that, Daniel. I know we need to taxi in for a landing here.
Okay.
But there's so many cool things that are out there about this that we're learning. And again, I want to say I'm super glad and appreciative of the work that you're doing with people. There's a lot that we know, there's a lot that we think we know, and there's a lot that we don't know, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I think that's something that's why I love to say that this show, the human emotional experience, we are working to figure this out together. That's what we endeavor. It's figuring these things out together. And I don't think anybody can disagree with that. The worst thing we've said multiple times is to stay trapped and alone, with
Yeah.
what you're struggling with and what you're fearful about and feeling shameful about. Like, get out of your dang head. If you call it a higher power to get out of your head, great. If you call it Daniel, my coach, great. If you call it therapy, great. If you
Yeah.
go to just church and call it Christianity or Buddhism, great.
Also. Yeah.
Do something.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that with the trap because I was thinking about my last word, and I think um, the blame is not your fault. You have taken some bad decisions. Everybody does. And you have stepped into a trap. Look at it as a bear trap. You know, you stepped in once, it cut off your leg, you won't step in again. But to recognize that it's a trap and that is not, you're not to blame. Shit happens in life. And I like to look at it as like a business problem. If you have a business problem, you look for solutions, you seek help. Who can solve that problem for me? And that's how I like you listening out there approach these problems. You have a problem? Fine, let's find a solution. There is a solution. Don't blame yourself. You have been trapped. Don't overdo it. It's a problem. It can be solved. And there are people like Chris and I to help you with.
Daniel, how do they find you again? And internet and all that?
Go over to quitthebottle.com or just write an email to daniel@quitthebottle.com and I'll be here.
Listen, it's about 8:30 Eastern Standard Time, and I want you guys to understand this guy cares. He's with us. He's literally up about, what is it now? 1, 2 o'clock in the morning?
2:30 a.m.
Holy crap, Calmanoli, man. Go get some sleep, my friend. I really appreciate hanging out with Through a Therapist's Eyes. Stay in touch with us and check our show out. Maybe it can be a help to some of your some of the folks that you work with. So we'll help each other, okay?
Thanks, Chris. Thanks a
All
lot
right,
for
guys. You
having
have a
me.
great week, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Be well.